The Eastern Kingdoms Cup is active in Dragonflight from the 4th to the 17th of October, unlocking 14 brand new dragon races across zones throughout the Eastern Kingdoms. And today, I'm going to be sharing 10 of my best tips that I've picked up along the way to help you earn gold in your dragon races. As always, if you have any advice of your own that you'd like to give, or if you have any questions about anything in this video, be sure to leave a comment down below. My first tip for any dragon race is to pick a mount that is small and compact. I prefer the Cliffside Wilderdrake for dragon racing, as it's the smallest available dragon riding mount, allowing me to have a clearer view of each race. You can change your preferred dragon racing mount by talking to Addons in Valdrakken or your faction's capital city, or with a bronze timekeeper assistant at the start of an Eastern Kingdoms dragon race. My next tip is to set yourself up with screen recording so you can watch each race back and review mistakes and areas to improve. This tip might sound extreme, but you might be surprised just how much you miss while you're focused on completing a dragon race, which you will then be able to see afterwards in review. For example, you might spot times when you should have used or saved a Vigor charge, or you might see an extra Vigor orb that you missed. But if you really want to push for gold in your dragon races, especially on advanced, reverse or challenge courses, VOD reviewing could be a very helpful tool, and there are plenty of free and easy to use softwares available such as OBS. Next up, if you'd like to have a more comprehensive overview of your dragon riding stats while flying, I would recommend looking into either a Dragonriding WeakAura or an add-on. I use the Dragonriding UI WeakAura by Darian, which is linked below if you're interested. What this does is it removes the default Blizzard UI encounter bar that shows the Vigor orbs on your screen, and instead replaces it with a few different elements, including a speedometer that shows you your speed percentage as well as the threshold for triggering the Thrill of the Skies passive, which is responsible for recharging Vigor while flying. Below that, you'll see a momentum gauge that glows green when your momentum is strong, and will decrease rapidly and glow red when you are losing momentum. Underneath that, you then have Vigor charges, and finally you'll also see a smaller bar appear below that whenever you use Whirling Surge, so you can track its cooldown. I've found having a WeakAura for dragon riding super helpful for making more accurate decisions about when to spend Vigor during a dragon race, as I can track how fast I'm going, and I can use an ability as soon as my speed levels out, which happens at 929%. Another useful piece of advice is to try disabling as many parts of your UI as possible while you're dragon riding. This is because while you're flying, you don't need to be able to see things like your unit frames, combat WeakAuras, or party or raid frames, for example. If you'd like to hide certain WeakAuras while using a dragon riding mount, head to the WeakAura you want to disable, click the Load tab, and then click on the Dragon Riding option twice until it says Not Dragon Riding in red text. You could also try creating a whole new UI loadout specifically for dragon riding, allowing you to hide action bars and frames, but this is dependent on how many loadout slots you have available to save. My next tip is going to sound very obvious, but it's worth noting nonetheless, and it is to zoom out. Keeping your camera at max distance while dragon racing gives you a significantly easier time of seeing more of the race, predicting your next move, seeing Vigor orbs, and so on. I use an add-on called Leatrix Plus, which has a setting to increase the max camera distance, which I find super useful. If you'd like to use Leatrix Plus yourself, the link to the CurseForge download is in the description below, and you will find the max camera zoom option in the System tab after typing /LTP in your chat window. In a similar vein to the previous tip, I would also recommend that you practice anticipating your movement during a dragon race. What I mean by that is looking ahead of the ring that you are about to pass through, so you're ready to move in the direction of the one that follows, and you can decide ahead of time which ability you need to use to reach it most efficiently. Depending on the race, this is easier said than done, as some rings will be around a corner on a hairpin turn, but after running the same race a couple of times, you will start to remember where the tricky areas are and how best to approach them. But generally speaking, always looking ahead of the ring you are currently aiming for gives you the best chance of earning gold in your dragon races. Predicting movement by looking ahead during a dragon race will help you more effectively execute the next tip, which is to cut corners. When you dragon race, remember that you don't have to hit the dead center of each ring you fly through. even if the ring contains a Vigor Orb. The ring and the orbs have a fairly generous hitbox, and as long as your character hits the ring, it will still be counted and you should still collect your Vigor Orb. You'd be surprised just how much time can be saved by shaving the edges off a few rings in each race, especially as this often means you have less movement to make to adjust for the next ring. My next piece of advice revolves around how best to use your Vigor in each race. Some advanced races will offer you lots of Vigor Orbs throughout, while others may only offer you a couple in areas where you need some extra momentum. Make sure you're using Vigor Orbs wisely and not spending them frivolously when you don't need to. Like I said earlier, having a Dragonriding add-on or WeakAura can help you identify more appropriate times to use an ability, as you can more clearly see your momentum and speed, rather than having to leave it to guesswork. Just note that if you encounter a race with lots of Vigor Orbs, the game is telling you you need to be using them as much as possible, as the timer for those races will be extremely tight. Speaking of Vigor, my next tip is to immediately start a race over from scratch if you miss a Vigor Orb. Vigor Orbs are placed strategically throughout each advanced course to test your Vigor management against the time limit, so if you miss a Vigor Orb, you immediately fall behind in the race and will likely struggle to earn gold without starting again. Don't be disheartened if you have to run a race multiple times to perfect it. My final piece of advice is to almost always choose Surge Forward and Skyward Ascent over Whirling Surge. Whirling Surge seems like a strong ability at first, as it immediately pushes you to a very high speed, but it costs you 3 Vigor, your speed declines rapidly as soon as you use it, and you have less control over your movement. Also, you can tell when the race is telegraphing the use of Whirling Surge, because it will give you a handful of Vigor Orbs in quick succession, usually preceding a long straight stretch. This is perhaps the only time Whirling Surge is ever necessary. Surge Forward is a much better option for more sustainable speed and control throughout a dragon race, and Skyward Ascent can be really beneficial while at high speed to launch you up high to reach a ring or dodge obstacles. So there we have it. Those are my top 10 tips for improving your dragon riding skills and how to earn gold in the Eastern Kingdoms Cup. Thank you so much for watching, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!